Hey friends, we're back this week with another unsolved murder case. We're discussing the death of Bessie White from Massena, New York. This case was a viewer suggestion from Cody, who is actually the great-great-nephew of Bessie. We're hoping to draw more attention to this case, and you guys know I'm always eager to spread the word on cases that don't get as much attention. Bessie was so young with her whole life ahead of her, and the story is just tragic. So as always, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Bessie White was born on October 16, 1894 in Brasher Falls, New York, to Moses and Mary White. Bessie lived in Massena, New York, and worked as a live-in housekeeper to Edwin Fremont McDonald, known as E.F., and his wife, Emma Shield McDonald. She had been under his employment for about 3 months prior to her death. The McDonalds were well-respected members in their community and is said to have had a good relationship with Bessie. Bessie left the McDonald residence on Elm Circle to purchase postage stamps and run some errands. It had been a rainy night, so equipped with her umbrella, hat, and overcoat, she set out for downtown Massena around 7 p.m. She made stops at Will Smith's hardware store where she purchased a lamp wick and Jerd's Market for some salt pork. To end the night, she decided to treat herself to a moving picture at the Star Theater and headed home just before 9 p.m. Unfortunately, the last person to see her alive would be the ticket salesman. Around 7 a.m. on October 4th, a project supervisor working on the construction of the new high school stumbled upon a gruesome scene. The McDonalds had believed Bessie returned quietly that night without disturbing them. But when they awoke to the commotion across the street that morning, Mr. McDonald went to investigate. He learned a young woman had been murdered, but he failed to recognize who she was. Nobody knew who this woman was. That was until Mr. McDonald returned home and realized there was no breakfast made and Bessie was nowhere to be found. Only then did he return to the scene and realize the young woman was actually Bessie. Her body was reportedly found behind a pile of junk in the schoolyard. The crime occurred about 170 feet away from the McDonald home. Police believe she was attacked as she passed the school and then dragged off the road to avoid prying eyes. The scene revealed Bessie did not go down without a fight. Coroner Smith of Winthrop stated the cause of death was due to a fractured skull and determined she was beaten with either an iron bar or stick. Her skull on the left side above her ear was crushed, her nose broken, and her right cheek bruised, as were her legs and hands. She also suffered 2 broken fingers. At the scene, authorities found a man's red bandana believed to have been used as a gag to muffle her cries. They also found her hat stuffed into a nearby brick, her umbrella stowed away under a wheelbarrow, and a fragment of underwear. Her clothes had been badly damaged and torn. Her packages, purse, and jewelry were also recovered, which ruled out robbery as a motive. The post-mortem exam revealed a sexual assault had been attempted before she was murdered. Police began an investigation asking for anyone with information to come forward. Several residents who lived nearby recalled hearing what may have been muffled screams or cries but couldn't verify. Many believe they thought children were just goofing off in the construction site, while 2 other males confirmed they too heard the noises, believing it could have been animals fighting. With no true leads, police turned to the red bandana found at the scene. A bloodhound was brought from the prison in an attempt to track the scent of the perpetrator. The dog was able to track a scent, which followed as far as a fountain located across the street, but there was where he lost it. Another report claimed the dog had gone straight to the McDonald's residence, which fueled speculations that EF may be involved. A reward was offered for any information on who may have murdered Bessie White. Now let's discuss the possible suspects of this case. E.F. McDonald. E.F. McDonald was subjected to scrutiny once an article published mentioned he may have had something to do with the murder. As previously mentioned, the McDonalds were well respected. From 1897 to 1906, E.F. was the co-owner of the Massena Observer, a prominent paper in the town. He also played a big role in academic improvements for the region, was a volunteer fireman, and director of the First National Bank and Trust Co. of Massena until he died in 1943. But he was most known for his position as the superintendent of schools, which he held until 1936. His wife Emma had been ill for quite some time and would unfortunately perish shortly after Bessie died. No one believed the rumors printed about McDonald, who had an alibi for his whereabouts that evening, or so he says. McDonald claims he spent the evening at the Citizens Club. He left the club in the company of a friend just before 10 and went directly home, having no knowledge of the crime until the next morning. All the local papers backed McDonald, believing he had no involvement. While he was combating the supposed false allegations, police began running down clues and chasing other leads. The Aluminum Company of America had recently imported a large number of transient laborers to the area. Some of these men had been arrested for infractions around town. The residents didn't want to believe that one of their own could have committed such a heinous crime. All eyes were focused on the transient labor force, and authorities conducted an investigation into the employees. Some of these suspects included a Russian laborer who left Massena immediately after the murder, but he was cleared. Another, Herman Wims, who was described as feeble-minded, was taken into custody in the city of Syracuse. He was also cleared due to him being incarcerated at the time of Bessie's murder. The Syracuse police also brought in a homeless man named George Bryce after they found discarded clothing belonging to him. But the man hadn't been to Massena for 2 or 3 years, and he too was cleared. They kept running into dead ends until September 10, 1918, when a paper began circulating that a convict named Will Thomas claims to have known who killed the young woman. The Massena Observer stated a letter was received by the police captain on August 29th from the deputy sheriff of Akron, Ohio. In the letter, he was requesting information about the murder due to an inmate claiming he had knowledge pertaining to the case. The information was provided, and the prisoner, named Will Thomas, pointed the blame at another man he called Frank. He described Frank as having straight black hair, gray eyes, a long face with yellowish skin. Frank was around 40 years old and considered a good-sized man. He was from Ohio and came to Massena like Thomas to work at the Aluminum Company of America. Thomas claimed the two of them shared sleeping quarters which the company provided for the hired help. He stated on October 5, 1917, Frank paid him $40 to wash his clothing. Thomas generally did Frank's washing, but this time was different when he noticed specks of blood on the clothing. He questioned him, and all Frank told him was it was all right. That night, Frank began talking in his sleep, describing what he had done, according to Thomas. He told him he killed a girl that he tried to assault. Thomas claimed he had confronted him, with Frank's only rebuttal being that Thomas needed to keep his mouth shut, which he agreed to do. Frank bribed Thomas with $150 to keep his secret, which he stated he only received 40 of. This lead seemed like the most promising, but sadly it would fizzle out like the others. Thomas later admitted he lied about his statement. He actually knew nothing about the crime, and only fabricated his tale in hopes of improving his chances of being released from prison. He was charged for killing a woman in Louisiana and assaulting another in Ohio. The case of Bessie White rocked the community of Massena. Many have tried to solve this unfortunate crime, but sadly nothing has come to fruition. Bessie White was laid to rest in the St. Patrick's Cemetery in Brasher Falls, New York, and sadly, her murder remains unsolved. A big thank you to Cody for this very interesting and tragic case, and also for the pictures that were used in the video. I always feel kind of empty after the unsolved cases because we don't have a resolution, but obviously it's nothing compared to what the families have to feel. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. You know, it lets YouTube know the content is interesting. And lastly, if you're not subscribed, please do so. We would love to have you join us. Thank you to my viewers who come and hang out with me every single week. You guys make this happen, so thank you for being so kind and supportive. I think next week I'm finally going to release another Serial Killer Files, which, by the way, thank you for all of your suggestions. I think I'm going to have to do like a random generator or something just to pick which one to do. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.